I guess I've always heard about Martha Dixon. I did not have the pleasure of meeting her, but she is iconic. I still feel her presence in TV6 when I'm there. It was WJIM at the time, and I've heard many stories about WJIM that the television and radio station were named after Mr. Gross's son, Jim. And it's really interesting that he just kind of plucked Martha, out of the community. He saw something in her that maybe she didn't see in herself at the time, to be able to be an icon on television and really connect with the community, especially housewives of the 1950s. I think about that she has her own television show, The Copper Kettle. There's still remnants of The Copper Kettle at TV6 now. Today we have the hood from the fireplace that's in the place where we have our lunch. And it's just amazing that she had those kind of humble beginnings actually in the food industry. And she worked at Grande Gourmet. Remember that in Frandor? Oh my gosh, what a No, I did go to Grande Gourmet. I love that store. Any kind of kitchen gadget that you can imagine having, which was phenomenal. So when I think of her beginnings there and at Michigan State, learning all about food and nutrition, and then working at the Homestead up north, that place still thriving to this day. But the legacy for her as a woman in the 1950s to have her own television show, a half-hour television show to start with, and that was really unheard of. I remember looking back at one of her shows that she did. She talked about the grocery sale specials of the day, hams, some other things. The next thing, she's interviewing Martha Reeves, who's, cutting a solo album. And then she's interviewing someone next that's talking politics. And this is all, and at that time, that was her hour-long show. She started as a half an hour, and then she got to move to an hour. So people loved it. People absolutely loved it. So she really was cutting edge. I am standing literally on her shoulders. Her success just paved the way for a lot of us female broadcasters at TV6. I'm indebted to her. She started in 1954. She wrote her cookbook in 1963, and then there was a second edition for her cookbook in 1983. Think about that. It's so popular, and we're going to talk a little bit about her cookbook later. But, Martha, she belonged to professional women's journalism groups. She wasn't all fluff. She wasn't all just, let's come on, let's cook. She talked about hard things. She tackled hard topics, politics, local government, things going on in the community. People would write in. She took a lot of letters from people that wanted her to look at things that were important in the community. And she was a fast talker. I didn't know if you noticed that when looking back. She really was a fast talker, but that's because her energy was so high. She had so many things that she wanted to cover. And like I said, very unique style. I remember one interview that she did with Pat Boone. I think they both were swooning over each other a little bit. She had some really big names, Pat Boone, Martha Reeves coming in. I imagine that a lot of people, when they were coming through Lansing and East Lansing, wanted to be on the Martha Dixon show. And the Copper Kettle. Did you, looking back at the video, seeing the women come in, they're dressed to the nines, they have their handbags, their hair is all done. They can't wait to be on this show. They can't wait to be in Martha's world. I think a lot of people were very grateful that she decided to make Lansing her home, to commit to this area, and to really be an example of what it takes to be a female leader. And she didn't back down, I don't think. She had a lot of support in her corner, much like many of us today that sit on the anchor desk. It's a privilege. It was a privilege for her, and she never took it for granted, and she had a beautiful run, just an incredible run. She was published, she was a speaker, she was a sought-after guest. Everybody wanted to be invited to one of her parties at the country house. I guarantee you that. This is very special. You're not going to believe this, but recently a man who lives here in Lansing was going through his father's things and found Martha's cookbook and reached out to me and said, I don't really know what to do with this, but I want to pass it along to you. And of course, I was honored to receive it. And I opened it up, her picture's right here on the front, and many of the same accoutrements that are part of this building in this room are still there today at TV6, so I had fun looking at that. And I actually opened it up. I heard that her fudge was very famous, and her fudgies, we call them no-bake cookies, but she calls them top-of-stove cookies. So this morning, today before the interview, I thought, what the heck, I'm going to give them a shot. And they're very good. People love her fudgy recipe. It's very well laid out. All the different, from start to finish, appetizers and main courses, and then desserts and punches. I thought this was very interesting. Did you know that in the foreword, she dedicates the book to Mr. Gross, who obviously was her, helped pave the way. But Win Schuler wrote the foreword for her. They both had a mutual respect for each other and their love of cooking. And I really read that today, and I thought, oh my gosh, may your adventures in the following pages be as pleasant as mine were. So they really did support each other. I thought that was nice that Win Schuler was one of the people who endorsed her book. Even the image on her cookbook, and from the videos that I saw, grainy as they were, she's a very elegant woman. She's wearing her pearls. She's all dressed up. She always was dressed to the nines for her shows. And really she was cutting edge at the time. You think about it, we have Martha Stewart. We have, of course, with our streaming services, we have all kinds of cooking shows now. Everybody loves cooking shows, but we're talking about the 1950s here. So she was just way ahead of her time. Very, very popular. And the way that she would talk about the specials of the day, predating the commercials that we have now, and then going through all the different things and setting such a beautiful table, and how she sets a beautiful table. So you think about where we are now in the 2000s, and 1950 we're talking about. She was just cutting edge, way before her time. And I bet you she would still be popular today.